To tidy up the junction between the wall and the ceiling, there's a few options really. You can use a quad mould or a scotia, or if you want a more decorative look, and the way we're going to go here is to use a crown moulding. Now when it comes to crown moulding, because of this intricate shape, it does throw up a few challenges in joining in the corners. Now typically in your room you'd have 4 internal corners. Now for an internal corner, you've got 2 options really. You could cut a miter joint, like this sample here. Now typically in a miter joint, an internal miter, the bottom edge is longer than the top, and those 2 pieces will just come together like that. The only issue with this type of joint, if your walls are slightly out of square, it will open up in the corner, having a gap at the front. Now your other alternative for an internal corner is to use a scribe joint, or otherwise known as a coping cut. Now scribing intricate detail moulding like this crown moulding is not that easy, so there are some processes you need to follow. The big advantage with this joint though is that when the 2 pieces slide together, it does allow for the compensation for walls that are out of square. Now the idea of the scribe joint is to reproduce the shape of the crown moulding on the end. Let's go back to the bench and I'll take you through those processes. To create the internal corner of your cornice, ideally you need to use a scribe joint, or better known as a coping cut. Now due to the nature of this detail of this crown moulding, cutting a coping cut on this profile can be a little challenging. The first thing we need to do is to cut a 45-degree angle at one end, but that's where the challenge starts. You need to orientate your moulding on the saw in the same orientation that it's going to be fitted to the wall. This would be the wall and that would be the ceiling. But if I tried to hold my material on that saw like that and make the cut, that's just asking for trouble. The blade will grab that material and just flick it back up against the fence. It's very dangerous. The other alternative is I can flip it over upside down. That's a little bit better because I've got pressure down here on the base of the saw and on the back. But an even better way is to just produce a little box or a little jig and just put a stop at the front. The idea of this is I'm going to attach that to my saw. Put the screw through, 2 screws through the back of the fence here, and then my crown moulding fits into that jig, and you can see straight away how that's held nice and secure. All I do then is just run my saw down that miter there to produce this 45-degree angle. Now once I've done that, that would give me the shape or the profile that I need to cut. I need to cut around this line, and to do that we use a coping saw. The idea of the coping saw is that it can get all the way around these curves nice and tight. You can just use the same jig just to hold it in position and then just make your cut. Just take your time with this cut, just follow the line. Make sure the blade is on the waste side of the material because we want to remove all this section here. Another tip, if you hold the saw on a bit of an angle, that would create a back cut, so then it'll allow for any walls that are out of square. So it's time for an installation now, and I've cut all my pieces. Now my back piece, the long piece, is cut square into the wall, just 2 butt joints up against the wall, and I've cut the 2 returns with a scribe. Before I fix anything to the wall though, I always like to get a scrap piece of the material and place it in position and mark the front edge along the ceiling and the bottom edge along the wall. Just make sure this is sitting flush against the ceiling and this is flush against the wall. That'll prevent me from rolling it over and changing the orientation.